or any people may be there, or any company can be there. So that's why this is a kind of the funding of the money and a kind of funding for the business activities and the financial activities and making purchase something and investing that we call as a financing. So that's why something we purchase, for example, we purchase a car. When we want to purchase a car or we want to purchase some bike or real estate something, so at the time we may not have enough money. We don't have enough money. At the time, it's the bank and financial institution provides the fund, provides the loan to us. It's related to the concept of financing. So that's why financing भन्ने बित्तिकै यस हामी केही कुरा खरिद गर्छौँ हामीलाई इनफ मनी नहुन सक्छ त्यस्तो अवस्थामा बैंक र फाइनान्शियल इन्स्टिट्युसनले हामीलाई मनी प्रोभाइड गर्छ नि that is a financing. So financing is a kind of the loan, but there is always interest comes here. So a kind of the loan we take it from the bank and financial institution, and it's very easy and helpful. It may be helpful to us to run our business activities and making purchase and investing. So that's why yes, financing is a kind of the funding made in the Japan to run the business activities and making purchase something on investment. That is the concept of the financing. So yes, there is different types of the financing. Generally in practice, all over the world and in Nepal as well. Generally two types of the financing are there. First one is the debt financing. Next is equity financing. Equity financing refers to it is certain person is the provides the fund, a bank and financial institution provides the fund and they provide the money and the money is converted into a share capital of the company. That is the equity financing. So there are two types of financing out there. First one is debt financing and next is equity financing. Debt financing refers to a kind of the loan. They provide the loan and they take the interest. That is the debt financing. And next one is equity financing. Equity financing भनेको चाहिँ शेयर दिने हो कम्पनीको ले फन्ड दिन्छ मनी दिन्छ त्यो फाइनान्सिङ गर्दै बापत उसले कम्पनीको शेयर खरिद गर्दछ that is the equity financing. And debt financing provide the loan and they take as a loan and they provide it with interest. The loan is given. That is the debt financing. So generally there are two types of the financing. First one is equity financing. Next is the debt financing. So yes, financing generally is conducted by the different companies. So that we call as a financing. Yes, the financing refers to it is asking for any financial institution. The bank is asking to any bank and financial institution for the credit or the union of the finance company, maybe there. So and the person lend you a money. Yes, another person lend you a money to purchase something for making purchase or investing or to run the business activities. Another person lend you a money and you promise to repay at some point in future. We promise to them, those who lend money to us, we promise to them, we will repay in your money in future with some interest rate. So that's why, yes, some people or bank or any individuals lend to us money to making purchase something because we need the money and we promise that we have promised to them, yes, promise to repay at some point in future. That is a financing. So it's simple word we can also in this way. So for example, yes, when you buy a car, when I or you want to buy a car, new car at the time, yes, if you do not have enough money, enough cash for it to making purchase that car, so the dealer will look for the bank and that will finance it for you. Definitely the dealer will look for the bank and the bank will provide the fund that with money or fund that is the concept of a financing. Yes, definitely, yes, to making purchase something and to run the business activities. If the bank and financial institution provides the loan and lend the money, that is a financing. Okay, in a simple way, we cannot say in this way. So the purpose of the financing is making purchase something to other people. So it is the way and it is the conceptual framework of the financing. Now, there is some features of financing. Yes, financing is the process of funding to the business. Yes, it is a process of funding to the business in a business. Business like कसैको व्यापार व्यवसायलाई फन्डिङ गर्ने वे. This is the concept of financing and business activities and making purchase and investment. A kind of the investment. Financing is a kind of, because we take a money, we take a loan from the bank and we invest the money in somewhere in our business. So that we call as investment. So that's why financing is a kind of the investing. It goes the bank and financial institution provides the loan, they lend the money to us and we invest the money in somewhere in our business activities as an investment. So that is financing. So there are generally two types of the financing. First one is equity financing and next is debt financing. There is differences between the equity and the debt financing. Equity financing refers to, yes, the bank and financial institution and individuals lend the money or provides money to anyone or any companies, and the company provides as an equity share. The equity financing is converted into a share capital of the company that we call as equity financing. It goes bank and financial institution provides the loan, provides the money, and this money is converted into equity share capital of the company. So that we call as equity financing. Equity financing भनेको लोन दिने गर्दछ. यस ब्याङ्कले लोन दिन्छ, त्यो ब्याङ्कले दिएको लोन त्यो फाइनान्सिङ गरिदिए बापतको that is converted into a share capital of the company. त्यसलाई कम्पनीको शेयर क्यापिटलमा कन्भर्ट गरिन्छ भने that is equity financing. So that's why equity financing refers to is purchasing of the certain person of a share capital of the company. There is equity financing. Yes, conversely, equity financing is the debt financing is, yes, debt financing, debt is given by the bank and with interest in the future. Yes, it is, we are obliged to pay out or pay off it in future with some interest. That is the debt financing. Debt financing भनेको चाहिँ हामीले ऋण दिने गर्दछ. Yes, as to the debt financing, the debt चाहिँ हामी certain percentage with interest in future it has to be paid out. यो फ्युचरमा चाहिँ हामीले त्यो debt financing लाई चाहिँ हामीले paid out गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. That we call as a debt financing. So these are the different features of the financing I could say. So that's why, yes, always in equity financing place no additional financial burden onto the company. No additional financial burden to the company. But in debt financing, yes, it is related to be cheaper than and comes with as a kind of the break. So that's why the debt financing is we have to pay it out in future with interest. That is debt financing. Debt financing चाहिँ फ्युचरमा हामीले पेड आउट गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ, त्यसलाई हामी debt financing भन्छ. Okay, yes, and there are many two types of the, yes, equity and debt financing. Yes, debt is a kind of loan. It must be paid out often if the company is often with interest, but it is typically cheaper than the raising the capital because the tax deduction is consideration. In the debt financing, the tax purpose, tax deduction in consideration. Because it is a loan, is a kind of the loan, and that loan must be paid back often with interest. As a debt is a loan, but this debt must be paid back, paid up often with interest. There is a debt financing. So, but unlike to the debt financing, equity financing does not need to be paid back. The equity financing now required to be paid back, but the debt financing it requires to be paid back in future. So, it relinquishes or it just equity financing relinquishes or it exercises the ownership tax to the shareholders as a shareholders of the company. So that's why easily we can say so equity financing can be converted into equity share or some percentage of the share capital of a company as a shareholder. It is converted, and the equity financing definitely the exercise and the relinquish or the ownership of a company. Company as an ownership as a shareholder equity financing they are providing the finance. So that's why yes, it does not need to pay back in future because it is converted into share. It's a kind of the share investment in a share capital of the company. Equity financing is a simple word. It is investment in the share capital of certain person. नमस्कार, म क्लासमा थिएँ सर। Yes. Okay. Sorry for the disturbances to the class. है त्यहाँ दिन सर आउनु भएको रहेछ फोनमा मैले एकछिन बोलिहालेँ PhD को एउटा काम थियो त्यही भएर. So yes, okay, we are talking about the, yes, we were discussing about the debt financing and the equity financing. In a simple word, yes, debt financing is a kind of providing the loan to the someone to run the business activities. That is debt financing. And equity financing is a kind of the investment and purchasing of the certain person or certain percentage of the share capital of the company. Company को certain प्रतिशत share capital खरीद गरे सरनी मान्छे. So that's why it's a simple word. It's debt financing. It's required to be, it has to be paid out in future. But the equity finance is now required to be paid out in future. Debt financing मा चाहिँ हामीले paid out with interest. It has to be paid out. Those the institution who has financed it to them, जुन institutionले जसलाई finance गरिदिएको छ paid out in future. But in debt financing, it has to be paid out. But the equity financing now required to be paid out in future because it is a kind of the share purchasing of the share capital of the company. That is the equity financing. Equity financing is a purchasing of the share capital of a company. That is the equity financing. So these are the two differences between the debt financing and the equity financing. Yes, in a simple word, we could say, yes, equity is refers to, it says another word is a kind of the ownership in a company. Equity refers to ownership in a company because we purchase a certain percentage of the share ownership in a company through the equity financing. So a kind of equity financing because, for example, in the A bank, for example, the A bank, name of the bank is A, and the bank provides a loan lend money to another company. And yes, they provide the loan and they provide the money and they lend the money. So this money can be sometimes invested as equity financing. It can be invested as equity financing. As equity financing को रूपमा पनि त्यसलाई इन्भेस्ट गर्न सक्छ. That is called equity finance. That's why the equity is another word that is a kind of the ownership. It's related, it's concerned with the ownership in a company. So that is the equity financing. So that's why it doesn't require to be paid out in future. That we call as a equity finance. So that is the difference between equity financing and the debt financing. And some advantages and disadvantages of equity financing is there because both debt and equity financing may have the advantage and the disadvantage. And we can say easily, yes, equity financing is advantage is that yes, we can purchase the share capital of the company. That is the advantage because with the equity financing, we are able to buy the certain percentage of the share capital and take a ownership in a company. Company ma ownership हाम्रो सिर्जना हुन्छ. It creates the ownership in a company through the equity financing. So that's why the people can get opportunity to invest the money as a shareholder of the company because people are struggling to purchase the promoter share in the company still nowadays. People company को प्रमोटर शेयर खरिद गर्नको लागि अहिले पनि प्रमोटर शेयर पाइन्छ कि भनेर राम्रो कम्पनीको लागि उनीहरु स्ट्रगल गरिरहेको हुन्छ. So that's why it creates the ownership in a company and it creates the opportunity to the people to invest the money in any company. कुनै त्यस्तो renowned company छ भने राम्रो कम्पनीमा शेयर इन्भेस्ट गर्ने opportunity प्राप्त गर्छ. So that's why yes, it is the advantage is that yes, definitely it creates the opportunity of investment in a company. So that's why it provides the opportunity by the company through the equity financing. So it is helpful to create ownership and to stake the ownership in a company, and people are able to purchase the share capital of the company. So that's why equity financing is definitely, it is concerned with the people. It is very helpful and it can be help to the people to take ownership and to stake the ownership in a company. It creates the ownership of the finance company to them. जसले फाइनान्स गरेको त्यो फाइनान्स कम्पनीको चाहिँ कम्पनीको शेयर ओनरशिप क्रिएट हुन्छ. That is the advantage. And another one is that it's not required to be paid out back in the future. Futureमा paid back गर्नुपर्ने. That is the advantage. But somehow the disadvantage is that disadvantage is also there in the equity financing. Equity finance disadvantage is that yes, there is no any interest rate. They can't get any interest. That is the disadvantage because in the equity financing they could not get any interest in future, and there is a kind of the financial burden to the company. Company को share को लागि financial burden company ले हुन्छ. So that's why because the numbers of the share holders can be increased and there may be the conflict. That is the disadvantage of the equity financing. So there may be the disadvantages that there may be the conflict among the shareholders, because numbers of shareholders are increasing day by day, and among number of shareholder and said partner, that may arise the conflict. That make conflict can be arise there. So that's why the conflict, and the new partner comes there, and the company's internal office, they do not know, they don't have any information about the company's way and objectives of the company and the different rules and regulations of the company. There can be the conflict because the new partner is entered into a company, but the partner do not know, they don't know any information about the company, so it can create the conflict. So that's why the disadvantage is that the new shareholder, when interested into a company, they do not have any information about the company and objects of the company. They may not have the know about the whole affairs of the company, objectives, and the numbers of the shareholder. They do not have information. So that's why at the time the conflict can arise. So that's why equity financing मा चाहिँ disadvantage भनेको नयाँ व्यक्ति कम्पनीमा इन्टर हुन्छ, त्यो इन्टर भएको कारणले कन्फ्लिक्टहरू अराइज हुन सक्छ। न्यू पार्टनरलाई कम्पनीको अफेयर्सको बारेमा थाहा नहुन सक्छ, because they may not have information about it. They do not know about the internal affairs of the company. So at that time conflict can be arise. So that's why there is a risk factor of the equity financing. You say equity financing को लागि risk factor हो भनेर हामी भन्न सक्छौं. Okay, and now the next one is debt financing. Debt financing, definitely it is, yes, it comes with, it is paid out, paid off in future with the interest. That is the debt financing. Yes, most people, and yes, mostly debt financing is familiar in practice, in practical life, in our day-to-day life as well. In our day-to-day life as well, it's very important, and most people are familiar with the debt financing as a form of financing, because they have the car loans and mortgage, a kind of the mortgage, a kind of the loan, providing the loan for the purpose of business activities and investing, and there is any loan and financial debt are given by any company, that we call as debt financing. So generally in practice, generally practical but debt financing what it practice mounted. So that's why it is also considered as a common form of a financing. It's common form of the financing for the new business, and some lenders require collateral, some not require collateral. Yes, because the debt financing, some lenders require collateral, because it depends on the amount of the money, how much money they want to take as a debt financing. So how much money they require. Some requires the collateral, some now require collateral. कतिपय अवस्थामा collateral राख्नुपर्ने हुन सक्छ। ठुलो अमाउन्टमा मन लिनु पर्यो भने, ऋण लिनु पर्यो भने, अब ठुलो अमाउन्टमा होइन भने collateral is not required. So that's why some lenders require collateral, some lenders now require collateral. So that's why it is common type of the financing. We call it a debt finance. So generally in practice in our day-to-day life, debt financing is easier to obtain the small amounts of the cash when you need or require. When you require the money, small amount of money also providing by the lenders. Also, they are also providing the lenders to the people who requires the money. जसलाई as a financing रूपमा debt चाहिराखेको हुन्छ, मलाई small amount of the money उनीले दिइराखेको हुन्छ, that we call as a debt financing. त्यसलाई हामी debt financing भन्छौँ. And yes, definitely both the as to the equity financing, the debt financing has also its own advantage and own disadvantage. As the advantage is that debt financing, it is paid out, it has to be paid out in future, and advantage is that we can't, and the debt finance, the lender gets the interest, the money with the interest. So that's why the lending institution has no control over how you run your company. There is no any, they have no any ownership. They have no any ownership in the debt financing, because they only provide the loan, they only provide the money. They don't care about the internal affairs of the company and investment under running of their business. They don't care. So that's why, yes, the advantage is that in a debt financing, yes, the lender gas the kind of interest with the interest in the future. So that's why it has to be paid out in future. And disadvantage is that kind of the financial burden comes there. Disadvantage when it's yes, the small type of business lending can be as a slowed substantially and during the recession. So that's why a kind of the expectation अनुसार कहिले काहीँ बिजनेस नहुन सक्छ, सानो सानो बिजनेसलाई पनि लोन दिइराख्नु पर्ने हुन्छ. Such kinds disadvantages is there, but mostly in the debt financing, it has to be paid out in future, and they get the interest. The lender gets the interest with the interest rate, with the fixed interest rate they will get the money payback and it is refundable. You're saying redeemable, refundable, and this fund has to be paid out with interest rate, with the fixed interest in future. So that's why these are the advantages and disadvantages of the both debt and equity financing. We can differentiate in this way. Our equity to debt financing, यसरी describe गर्न सक्छौं. We can categorize in this way. And yes, some advantage and disadvantage of debt financing. For example, these are the yes, in some points we can categorize in this way. So that's why debt financing, these are the advantage and disadvantage we can see in this way as well, and you could see later on. And now next one is some except to the debt financing and equity financing, there is another kind of the financing that is a trade financing. If the people or any institution has to the finance in a trade related business, that we call as a trade financing. Trade finance refers to maybe the import and export of the goods and services from the one country to the another country. So the trade is related to the international trade and the national and international trade. But if the people to any bank and financial institution or any people and they provide the money, they lend the money, that we call as a trade financing. They provide the money in the trade related business, that we call as a trade financing. So that's why except equity and trade financing, the trade financing is also another concept is there. So trade financing is a kind of the financing in the trade related business. It's generally it is concerned with the export and import related business. So that's why as a trade financing represents to the financial instrument and products that are used by the companies to facilitate international trade and commerce. So it is a kind of the facilitation on the international trade and commercial areas. So that's why those are the people and institutions who finance the money in the trade related business that we call as a trade related finance. So trade related finance refers to it is a kind of the finance which is the money is given and money is lending those the peoples and those the companies who are engaged in the trade related business, both the trade international and national trade. जो नेशनल र इन्टरनेशनल ट्रेड रिलेटेड बिजनेसमा इन्गेज भएका हुन्छन् उनीहरूलाई यदि फाइनान्स कसैले गरिदिन्छ भने that we call as a trade finance. So that's why different parties are there. Different parties are involving in the trade related business. For example, the bank, maybe the party and trade finance companies are there, and the exports and imports are there. The export and imports of the goods and services, and insurance company can be there, and the export credit agencies and service providers. Service provider are there, bank and financial institutions are there, exporter and importer, and insurance companies. It means the insurer. Insurer refers to the insurance companies are there. So such kinds of different parties are involved in trade financing because in the international trade and international business, what happens there is that international business we have to take it's a saman एउटा company हुन्छ, product एउटा company हुन्छ. The product is from the one country and the container is from the another country. जसलाई सामान लिएर आउने container हुन्छ अर्को company हुन्छ because there is a consignor and there is another third party and the destination country is another country is there in the destination country. Such kinds of tripartite and more and more countries are involved in international trade. So that's why different parties are involved. So that's why insurance companies are there, bank and financial institution, and the export company and import company and the production company and different companies are involved there. So that's why in the international trade, numbers of people are involving. And so different parties are involved. So the bank and the insurance company and the exporter and the importer and the export credit of the different agencies and service agencies are. These are the different agencies who are involved in the trade financing. So that's why the trade financing is not only providing the loan and provide the money for the trade related business that we call as a trade financing in a simple word. So that's why yes, trade financing is different than the conventional financing or the credit instruments. So trade financing is different than the equity and the debt financing. It's not conventional in nature. So that's what we call as a trade financing. So that's why, yes, most of the world nowadays, more than 80 to 90%, more than 80 to 90% of the world trade relies on the trade financing. According to the WTO report, WTO guide organizing report says that the more than 80 to 90% of the world trade, international trade are depend on the trade financing. अब वर्ल्ड का जति पनि बिजनेसहरु छ more than 80 to 90% जति पनि ट्रेड रिलेटेड financingमा यिनीहरू डिपेन्ड भइराखेको हुन्छन् भनेर WTO को रिपोर्टले भन्छ. So that's why the WTO report says that more allopathic growth, more than 80 to 90% of the real business nowadays it is governing by the trade financing. वर्ल्डको 80 देखि 90% सम्मको जति पनि बिजनेसहरु छ, it depends on the trade financing. So that's why this is the situation of the trade financing and condition. Now, the providers of the trade finance, who are the provider? Provider may be the banks provides the loan, supply provides the loan, syndicates provide, also they are providing as a trade financing. They are the provider to the trade financing. Buyer also provides the loan. Trade finance companies and trade finance houses are here. So trade financial companies, banks, there are syndicators and the supply syndicates and suppliers and the buyers. These are the different companies or different agencies who provides the loan, who lends the money, who are providing the money, who are investing the money in the trade financing. Maybe the supplier can provide the money to them. Maybe the buyer also provide the money to them. Banker, financial institution, and the different banks and the syndicators, and also those people who require the money. They are considered as a borrower. They borrow the money from these different agencies. So that's why providers of the trade finance चाहिँ कसले दिन्छ त भन्दा ब्याङ्करले दिन सक्छ, सिन्डिकेटरले दिन सक्छ, as a buyer दिन सक्छ, supplierले दिन सक्छ. These are the different agencies who provides the money and who finance the money to the as a trade related business. So these are the different and in the trade financing is definitely there are as a generally that there is also the risk factor can be your trade financing risk factor हुन्छ, and the control of the as a kind of the fund and controlling on the goods and services and the exporting and importing of the goods, and different parties are there, and monitoring as monitoring agencies are there. Different agencies are involved there because they sometimes what happen in a international trade business मा चाहिँ कहिलेकाहीँ के हुँदो रहेछ भने the destination country and there is a one container company are there, and there is the exporter and importer are there, different company, and the कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ due to the supervening impossibility विभिन्न प्राकृतिक कारणको कारणले विपत्तिको कारणले फर एक्जाम्पल कोभिड को कारणले कुनै सामानहरु बन्दरगाहमा अड्क्यो. इन अ पोर्ट देयर इज the goods are there is in a बन्दरगाहमा गुड्सहरु अड्क्यो भने त्यो सामान अड्किन त्यो 20 को कन्टेनरको भाडा कसले तिर्ने भने such kinds of concept come. So that's why in a trade financing as a consignee and the consignor, and there is a trade more than more parties are there of the insurance le behoर्ने हो कि importer le behoर्ने हो कि exporter le behoर्ने हो कि such kinds of things comes here. So in a such kinds of trade financing such kinds of issues always comes here. So that's why the liability depends on the nature of the business, and the liability of the parties depends on the nature of the business. उसको business को nature को आधारमा party को liability सिर्जना हुन्छ trade finance, because in the trade finance the more and more parties are involved. Trade financing मा more and more party ले involved हुन्छ trade मा business मा, and financing companies there अब company ले finance गरिराखेको हुन्छ. So in a situation such kinds of things are considered, and such kinds of things are generally considered in a trade financing. अब trade financing are generally answer. And now there are numbers of the instruments of the payment. How the trade financing generally in practice, how the payments are given. Payments in trade finance. So the methods of the payment is LC. Letter of credit is a kind of the method of payment. LC refers to it's a kind of the commitment of the bank. LC refers to it is a commitment of the written commitment of the bank. It's a bank guarantee. In a simple word, so LC refers to the bank guarantee because the LC is a common form of a written instrument by a bank on behalf of the customer. On behalf of the customer or on behalf of the importer, bank are generally they are guaranteed. Bank also guaranteed. It's a written instrument. LC refers to a written commitment of the bank on behalf of the customer. That is a LC in a simple word. LC भनेको simple word मा LC refers to it is a written instrument. Okay, it is a written instrument given by, or the written instrument, a kind of commitment given by the bank in a written form on behalf of the customer. That is a LC. LC भनेको के हो भने कुनै importer को तर्फबाट customer को तर्फबाट bank guarantee बस्छ. For example, I need to purchase something from the foreign country, and at the time the and bank, maybe the A class, B class bank of the Nepal, and the bank give the LC to the those importer, and bank is a bank has committed the money to it. That we call as LC. LC refers to it's a commitment of the banks to the on behalf of the customer. That we call LC. LC भनेको bank guarantee. Bankले guarantee बस्दिन्छ. It is a kind of written instrument, written commitment given by the bank on behalf of the customer or the importer with the third party. अब third party भनेको export हुन्छ. So export companyसँग exporter companyसँग bankले guarantee बस्दिन्छ भने that is a kind of the LC. So LC is a kind of the method of the payment in the trade financing. And next one is advance payment certificate. Sometimes advance payment certificate can be given. Sometimes the importer or the customer gives the advance payment certificate also. It is a kind of the LC, but it is in case of the advance payment, a kind of the advance payment certificate is given by the as a customer to the importer to the exporter. That we call as advance payment certificate. भनेको advance मा कुनै त्यस्तो खालको payment certificate provide गर्छ. That we call as a method of the payment. As a विश्वासको लागि as a credit लागि payment गर्छ भने that is the payment of the method. Advance पनि certificate दिने गर्छ. And bank guarantee, sometimes bank also gives them guarantee. Bankले guarantee बस्दिन्छ because in case of in future मा अब importerले पैसा तिरेन भने कसले दिने भन्दा bankले तिर्दिन्छ. So bank guarantee बस्दिन सक्छ. And trust receipt, for example, a kind of the trust receipt and importer loans. Okay, trust को रूपमा as a receipt दिन सक्छ. as a विश्वासको रूपमा कुनै त्यस्तो रिसिभहरू दिने गर्छ भने that is the trust receipt. So generally as a LC and the bank guarantees all over the worldwide practice. Generally worldwide practice चाहिँ LC हरू दिने गर्छ. For example, नेपालको कुनै कम्पनीले विदेशबाट कुनै त्यस्तो खालको सामान किन्नु पर्यो भने अब LC कसले पठाउँछ भन्दा bankले पठाउँछ. So that's why it is a kind of bank guarantee. So that's why I say prior payment certificate, bank guarantee, LC, and the trust receipt means of विश्वासको लागि कुनै त्यस्तो खालको रसिदहरू दिन्छ भने that is रिसिभहरू दिन्छ भने importers loanहरू दिन्छ भने that is these are the different methods of the payment. I mean the trade finance मा method of payment चाहिँ विभिन्न खालको हुन सक्छ. So that's why another one is that as a packing credit refers to pre-shipment loan. Pre-shipment loan refers to shipment is a loan are offered to the exporter to the financial purchase, kind of the purchasing of the good. So that's why pre-shipment loan is offered to the exporter and the finance purchase raw material and the manufacturing process, everything as a pre-shipment loan. It's a prior loan that we call as a pre-shipment loan, because one company is going to manufacturing some products and processing and raw material processing everything for the pre-shipment as a loan they are providing. भनेको नयाँ कम्पनी हो तर नयाँ कम्पनीको प्रोसेसिङ गर्ने manufacturing work and raw material उत्पादनदेखि सबैमा उनले as a shipment गरिदिन्छ as a kind of the whole things as a pre-shipment loan provide गर्छ भने that is we call as a pre-shipment loan. So pre-shipment loan is that during the initial phase of the company, as a prior initial beginning, as a prior phase and beginning phase of the company, if the bank or any financial institution provides a loan, that we call as a pre-shipment loan. Pre-shipment loan भनेको company केही काम गरेको छैन, but company is going to produce the new things in the future, and the processing and manufacturing and the processing of the raw material and packing and the shipping of the goods and everything. If they as a shipment loan they provide, that we call as a pre-shipment loan. Everything मा उनीहरुले लगानी गर्छ पहिला नै, that is a pre-shipment loan. And post-shipment loan is that yes, after the post-shipment loan is that offer the as exporters, it is a fine of the import. So a kind of is an exporter company. Generally shipment loan is generally given to the exporter company. Exporter company लाई दिने गर्छ because उत्पादनको लागि and the सामान उत्पादन भइसकेपछि पनि दिने गर्छ. That is a post-shipment loan. As a pre-shipment loan is exported to the exporter company at the bank and financial institution provides the loan prior to the production of the goods and services. Company exporter company goods and services उत्पादन गर्नुभन्दा अगाडि pre-shipment loan provide गर्छ. That is pre-shipment loan. And there is the post-shipment loan is that after the manufacturing of the goods and the shipment is offered to the exporter company in the form of the export document negotiation. That is the post-shipment loan that we call as and in the future it is a kind of the commitment agreement. In future, if the company manufacture these things, these goods to the exporter company, if the exporter company produce these things of goods, and we are ready to provide you a loan. That we call as a post-shipment loan. भनेको exporter company यो काम गर्यो भने हामी फ्युचरमा exporter company लाई हामी हामी यति लोन दिन्छौँ भनेर एग्री गर्छ भने that is the post shipment loan. So that's why in a manufacturing and processing of the goods and for the purchasing of the raw materials, so everything in the future, if the bank and any company provides a loan, that we call as a post shipment loan. Actually, pre shipment and post shipment loan are generally providing to the exporter company, especially for the production of the goods and the production of the raw materials and the manufacturing of the goods and services. Generally, any bank and financial institution, it provides a loan that we call as a pre-shipment and post-shipment loan. So generally, pre-shipment and post-shipment loans are generally providing to the exporter company. Generally, exporter company are like pre-shipment and post-shipment loan. That is the way of the method. So these are the different methods of the way of the methods of the kind of the financing. So that's why equity financing, debt financing, and trade financing. These are the different types of the financing. And now, yes, in the context of Nepal, where is the context regarding the financing and concept of financing, how we are doing this? Yes, in the trade-related policy, in the trade-related business, Nepal, as we have trade agreement with 17 different countries. Nepal had, yes, we have the trade-related agreement with 17 different countries. Nepalको 17वटा भन्दा बढी मुलुकहरुसँग trade-related हाम्रो agreement छ. Bilateral trade agreement. Yes, we have. Nepal has the bilateral trade agreements with 17 different countries. And we're also the member of WTO. In 2004, 23 April 2004, Nepal became the member of WTO. WTO members on 23rd April. From the 23rd April 2004, Nepal became the party of WTO. And in the Nepal and WTO rules and regulations, we are following, because we are party member of WTO. So under the WTO rule, according to the WTO rule 126 and 127, it mentions that from the third country, the Nepal has the right to import the goods and services from the third country, and by using the port of the neighboring country. Neighboring country को port प्रयोग गरेर, neighboring country को पनि बन्दरगाह प्रयोग गरेर third country बाट सामान ल्याउन सक्छ भन्छ. That WTO says that. So WTO is a all trade organization, gives a kind of the forum, and it provides in facilities all of the world for the trade-related business to their member countries. Member countries like saying, member state countries like saying, third country बाट सामानहरु ल्याउने, ओसार पसार गर्ने, neighboring country को portहरु use गर्न पाउने. Such kinds of provisions are there. So that's why Nepal is a member of the member state of the WTO after the 2004, and also we have the SAFTA rule, and with the South countries there is SAFTA. And we're also the member of the BIMSTEC as a bilateral, as a kind of the bilateral, a kind of legal framework agreement on the Bay of the Bengal Initiative for the multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation. We're also a member of the BIMSTEC, member of the SAARC and SAFTA, and a member of the WTO. And we have also 17 different countries. We have the trade-related agreement is there. So that's why on the basis of these, generally WTO rule we are following, and it is equally applied to the different countries, our neighboring country as well. So that's why under the WTO rule, where the trade-related business are running in Nepal. Nepalमा चाहिँ trade-related business मा WTO rule अनुसार विभिन्न व्यापार हुने गर्छ, सामानहरु export and import गर्ने गर्दछ. So that's why the different trans and ports of the different country. Our country को विभिन्न port बाट सामान ल्याउन पाउँछ. For example, in India, India we use different ports of India to import the goods. For example, Kolkata and Hyderabad ports and the Visakhapatnam port since 2006 we are using. We're using the two different ports of the India and China as well, different ports to import and export the goods we are using. So since 2006, Nepal are using the Kolkata port as a Hyderabad port, as a Haldia port we call it as a Kolkata and the Visakhapatnam. This is the port since 2006 we are using. कोलकाता बन्दरगाह र इन्डियाको त्यहाँबाट सामान ल्याउँदाखेरि हामी चाहिँ त्यो नाकाहरु युज गरिरहेका छौं. फर एक्जाम्पल अब नाकाबन्दीको बेलामा इन्डियाले हाम्रो सामान ल्याउन नाकाबन्दी गर्यो, WTO को इस्यु भनेर त्यति बेला कुरा पनि उठ्यो. So that's why Nepal, yes, Nepal is landlocked country, but as a WTO member, landlocked country has the right to import the goods and services, different manufacturing goods from they are right to export and import the goods with the third country by using the port of the neighboring country. Neighboring country को port प्रयोग गरेर third country सम्म सामान लैजान सक्छ, ल्याउन सक्छ भने चाहिँ WTO ले त्यो legal framework चाहिँ प्रदान गर्छ. So that's why financing, we are talking about the financing. It's definitely financing refers to a kind of the funding in the business activities, and making in the real estate for the purchasing of the something and the goods, and in the real estate as well, and investing, a kind of the investment. So that's why financing is definitely is a kind of the investment, as a kind of the help. It's a funding to the people and any company and any people by any bank and companies that we call as a financing. So that's why generally financing are generally doing by the bank and financial institution to the any people. It's a kind of the facilitation, kind of the support to run the business activities and to making a purchase something to the people, to require and needy people. जसलाई कुनै काम गर्नको लागि फाइनान्शियल सपोर्ट आवश्यक पर्यो त्यस्तो बेलामा फन्डिङ गर्दिने त्यसलाई हामी चाहिँ yes financing भन्छ. So that's why there are different ways of different methods of financing, as financing can be done in a trade related business, and it can invest the financial institution, bank and financial institution provides the money. It's the debt financing, or kinds of the equity financing are there, different ways are there. So these are the different ways and different status of the concept of the financing. यसरी चाहिँ financing गरिराखेको हुन्छ, I could say in this way. So these are the general conceptual framework of the financing. Okay, यसरी financing चाहिँ operate भइराखेको हुन्छ. यसरी financing भनेको कसैलाई कुनै गुड्सहरु आवश्यक पर्यो भने त्यो खरिद गर्नको लागि ब्याङ्कले दिने लोनलाई हामी financing भन्छौँ. It is a kind of thing though. So but these kinds of the debt and loans should have been paid out with the fixed rate of the interest. With the fixed rate of interest मा हामीले यसलाई पछि refund गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. It is redeemable, so it is refundable. So that we call as a financing. त्यो refundable हुन्छ र त्यसैलाई हामी के भन्छौँ, financing भन्छौँ. Okay, simple word. Yes, well, thank you to you all. अब now के छ यहाँसम्म केही छ financing मा? Thank you to you all. Section B, and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll discuss about the topic of the dividend. हामी लाभांशको बारेमा भोलि पढ्छौँ next chapter. Dividend on the types of the company we'll discuss. Okay, up to now any question? Okay, first I'll download your attendance here. Yes, your attendance is downloaded here. Now we'll say goodbye. Have a nice time to you all. Okay. Yes, goodbye to you all. See you next day.
Bye bye, sir.
Okay. Tomorrow we'll discuss to the end of the topic that will be dividend.